All right. Welcome, everybody, to today's office hours. You know, of all the things that we talk about in office hours and other things, merge fields may be the most frequently visited, but it's also the one that is, I think it's the most dynamic and properly titled here, Mastering Dynamic Content, because you can do so much with it. And what we want to do is talk about that. And how many people on here watch Elf? Have ever watched Elf? I think it's hilarious. And he is just so excited about things. That's kind of what I am as well. Kendra put this slide together. Give her credit for that. But that's kind of how I feel. So, so much win. So, go from there. For everybody that doesn't know me, my name is Mark Stepp. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Realvolve and your one of your hosts for today's office hours. Just want to make sure that everybody knows that as we go through the office hours, this is your time. You guys can ask questions, can put in information in the chat, just unmute yourself, whatever, and we'll talk about it. But I've spent 32 years just helping real estate agents understand the why of what we do in technology and helping you guys maintain a sustainable business. Kendra.
Yep. And for those of you who do not know me, my name is Kendra Rouse. I am in our premium services department and really working to make sure that you have systems and processes in place, set up in Realvolve. And, today's topic is something that, when I first started using the system, it took me a little bit of time to really wrap my head around, but the power behind using dynamic content and the whole idea being let information live in one place as a source of truth and then access that information in other ways by the use of merge fields, so that you can, lessen the time that it takes you to do things so that you don't have to go fish for information and let the system do the work for you. So today we're going to kind of go into some advanced merge field options inside of Realvolve and talk about kind of what that looks like or how you can implement some of these tools and tactics into your business. We'll go over how you can get additional support and help outside of these calls. And then as always, reference realvolve.com/office hours, where you can find a list of all of these office hours webinars that we host every Wednesday at 11 o'clock Eastern.
Kendra, one of the things that before we go here, see you. So in the chat, one of the things that I've done, I forget what year, a couple years ago, we did some live training there in Denver. And one of the things that we had as a resource was a big 120-page document of merge field of what we were going to do over the class. And what I did is I took the merge fields section of that and put it into a little PDF. You guys can click on that link. Oh, actually, maybe not. Let me see.
For the full list of merge fields?
It's not the full list of merge fields. What this is, actually, it's the pages from the training, and that link is not working. So hang on for 1 second. Let me share. Let me copy a different link here. See if this does it.
So while you're doing that, I'll go over. We're going to take a few people on this call are kind of, more advanced users. They've been in Realvolve for a while. So the purpose of today is not to tell you what a merge field is. It's to show you some of the more advanced functionality of the merge fields. We have a ton of resources. If you go into YouTube and in Realvolve's channel and type in merge field, you'll find some overviews, some basics on that. What we're going to talk about today is kind of some tips and tricks for the more advanced user, or some other things that you may not know that you're able to do inside of Realvolve. Did you find the link, Mark?
Yes, it's in the chat. It's the second link, not the first link. that should bring up the PDF. And it's basically the 20 merge field building blocks and some of the things that are discussed in here, just kind of breaking it down and showing where those are at, what those do. And then I can also give you the full list of merge fields as well. Find that one as well.
Yeah, I think that link, and then that's something I found myself referencing too when I was building out Realvolve is that list of merge fields. And so basically, when you think about merge fields, you want to think about, if I put this information into the system one time, or if the system already has this information, how can I take that and reuse it? And so some of the things that we're going to talk about today is ways that you can reuse date fields, or what those merge fields look like in Realvolve, seller reports, buyer reports, and how you can utilize or more advanced option for your checklists. We're also going to talk about current user merge fields and how you can use those. And so I think this is best demonstrated by going into Realvolve and taking a look at this. So let's jump into it. We talked about checklists. And if you're familiar with activities inside of Realvolve, if you access your activities, some of them may have checklists inside of it. So if I come to all of my activities and I'm looking at this, I can see here that this activity has a checklist associated with it. Okay, so if I click here, these are the things that I still have to do. So inside of your templates, you have a merge field that can essentially pull in what is completed and what is not completed in a checklist. And one of the things that I built out, or I found super helpful to do with this, and I'll show you how to do this, but think about this context. If you have an activity and you go under contract, okay, and let's say that you are systematizing your contract to close process so that your transaction coordinator is responsible for getting all of the documents that you need as soon as you go under contract, or verifying that things are complete. Okay, so maybe you in a checklist systematize each one of those out: purchase and sale, financing exhibit, lead-based paint exhibit, whatever it is that's specific in your area. Okay, so you've given this task to the transaction coordinator. Well, the transaction coordinator gets this checklist or this task that says, hey, you need to do all of these things. Did you get the purchase and sale? Did you get the each one of those? And so they're going line by line and checking off the things that you told them that they need. Well, what happens if they get to the lead-based paint exhibit? They see that this property was built in 1950. They know they need it. Now they need to communicate with you to let you know that they don't have it. Okay, so this merge field, what this could do is it could actually say, hey, go in and pull a list of the things that I do not have checked as completed. So what I'm going to do is go in and build this out and show you guys kind of what this would look like if you wanted to set something like this up. Okay, so I'm going to go into my contract to close. Typically in your contract to close, you are going to have a task that verifies the documents go and live wherever they need to live. And so in this case, I'm just going to repurpose this upload documents to Realvolve. Okay. So in this thing, we've got contract, counteroffer. I'm going to put financing exhibit. I'm going to put lead-based paint. I'm going to put pre-approval. Your list is going to look, different than mine. My point is that especially right now, you can see that we've passed this out to the transaction coordinator. So you as the agent are going to feel a lot more empowered to let this task get off of your plate if you know that you've given the person that's responsible for it the power or the information that they need to do it, right? And so you're going to get this list together, this checklist of exactly what needs to be done. And the next thing that you're going to do is you are going to create a template. And inside that template, we're going to tell it, hey, go look at that task and see, pull in any of the things that are not marked as checked off, because that says that that person has not been able to complete that information yet. Okay. So we can call this whatever we want. I'm just putting this acronym in here so that we know if we wanted to go search for it. You may have different acronyms. So call it whatever you want. Let the buyer's agent know we still need executed docs. Okay. This is part of a transaction because we're in buyer contract to close. So I could put documents still needed. Now here we go with our merge fields. I want to pull in the address. Okay. I can do this one of two ways. I can pull in and I can just start typing an address. So here I've got the transaction address. Here. If I do this with street address, this is going to pull in 123 Main Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, the zip code. It's going to pull in the full address. So you have two options here. You can either pull in the full address, or if you just want the street number and street name, you can do that as well. And as you can see, to pull in these merge fields, I'm just typing bracket, bracket, and then I'm starting to type in the keyword of what I want. And as you get more and more used to merge fields, then you'll be, this may become more natural to you, but I would very much encourage you to use that sheet that Mark put into the chat. If you're watching this on pre-recorded, we can put it in the description on YouTube, but reference that for some ideas on merge fields. So I'm going to do street number, street name.
Make sure that you put a space between them.
Yeah, right here. So if I did no space, then it's just it won't put a space. So you do definitely want to make sure you have spaces in between yours. So I can say, please see below for a list of documents still needed on, and just for this, I'll put in street address, okay? So now here's where the magic comes in. I'm going to type in checklist. And when I do that, you can see here that I have a few options, okay? And it's really important to understand what this is saying, okay? So this is saying, go look at this activity that you're attached to and give me all of the checklist items that are all of them. So regardless if they're marked as complete, incomplete, non-applicable, I want that entire list. If you do checklist completed, it's going to say, go in there and look at these and see which ones you've marked off as complete and just give me those. Incomplete is going to show me the things that I have not marked as done or non-applicable. And then removed is going to show you those things that you've double clicked on that you've showed that are non-applicable. Okay. So a couple things come to mind in this situation of what you could do. I'm definitely going to need incomplete, because again, in this situation, I have a task as the buyer's transaction coordinator that says I'm responsible for getting all these documents. I'm missing my lead-based paint, so I need to tell my agent that they need to get that document to me. So I'm going to say, hey, agent, I still need these documents. So, please get me a list of these things that I'm still requesting of you. And so the system can actually, this email template through the use of merge fields can go into that activity and pull a list of the things that you have not completed yet. Okay. So another thing that may be beneficial in this situation is the use of removed. And so you may put something like this. I have marked the following as, again, there's no right or way to set this up, but what comes to mind with this, with the non-applicable is maybe you as the agent want to know the things that that buyer's transaction coordinator has marked as don't matter, because at that point they haven't checked them off that they've completed. They haven't told you that they still need them. Maybe they just marked them that they don't need them. So again, I'm going to do bracket, bracket, checklist, and I'm going to do removed. So this is telling the system, give me a list of the things that buyer agent cannot mark as complete, and give me the list of the things that they mark that do not matter for this. Typically going to
circle slash. Just to be clear, that's the circle slash items.
Yeah.
Whenever you go to do your checklist of items, you can either leave it unchecked, you can have it checked, or you can do a circle slash as not needed. Just want to make sure that that's clear.
Yeah. And I'll run this on the front end so we can take a look at it. All right. So I'm going to save this. And the last thing that I need to do is create this action. So I'm going to go back to my activity and I'm going to create the action of send an email to the buyer's agent to request missing document. So this is an action item that I am giving the buyer's transaction coordinator in an effort to get this done. So, hey, if I can't complete this checklist, send this email over to the buyer's agent and let them know I still need this stuff. So what am I going to do? I'm going to send an email manually with preview. I could send it automatically, but just for caution's sake, I like to take a look at my stuff. This is an email. And I called it, let the buyer agent know. All right, so I've selected my email. Now I'm going to select this for an incomplete checklist item. If you're not familiar with what this means, it means that I can show activities before my checklist is complete or after my checklist is complete. It makes no sense in this situation for me to do this after my checklist is complete because the whole purpose of this is to give me assistance if I am unable to complete my checklist. So I want to see the option to send this email if one of my items on my checklist is not done. And that's what this means, incomplete checklist. Now, the reschedule in 0 days means if I send this email over to the agent and say, hey, agent, I'm missing that lead-based paint exhibit. I need you to get it back to me. What happens to this activity? Does it just sit there in limbo until the agent gets back to you? Does it go away for 1 day and then come back? Does it go away for 2 days and then come back? So you can actually control the pause time that you give that agent to get the information that you requested and get that activity back on your task list.
Yeah. Kendra, there was a question from Bobby. Why not also confirm what completed items you have? And absolutely, you could in that template that you're creating, you could make a section in there of these are the items that I do have, and then those are the items that are then checked off.
Yep, so I could say I have verified all the following are received. Again, I'm going to go checklist. And then in this case, I want checklist completed. Okay, so you can absolutely do that. That's the great thing about Realvolve. You can kind of just set it up however you want. All right, so I'm happy with my checklist, the way that it looks. The last thing that I have to do, I've created the activity that's going to send it. The last thing I have to do is tell the system who this is going to send to. And in this case, right now, the with is none. And the with in Realvolve is who are you communicating it with? In this case, I'm sending an email out to who? So I have to tell the system who it's going to go to. And in this case, I'm going to select party members. And I'm talking to the buyer's agent because this is me as the buyer's transaction coordinator telling the buyer agent that I don't have what I need. Okay. I could come down here in this action and CC some other people. Maybe your broker wants to get involved. Maybe buyer agent 2 wants to get involved. Maybe you like to send emails to yourself and you're the buyer transaction coordinator and you want a copy of this as well. You can include who's CC'd on this and hit save. If I put those people in this with field up here under party members, that is saying send individual emails to everybody, and it is not CCing them on one email, which may be the way that you decide to set it up. I'm typically a fan of putting one person in the with field and CCing everybody else so that everybody is together on communication, unless there's some reason where you wouldn't do that, where you don't want those people seeing, maybe it's the other agent and your client. That would be a good reason to put people separate in that with field. So I've told the system, you're going to email the buyer's agent if I decide to send this email. So now that I've set that up, let's run it and see what that looks like. So inside of my transaction, in my contract to close workflow, let's find that activity that we did this with. which was upload the documents to Realvolve. Any questions while we're waiting for that to load? Everyone's like, no, I want to see what you're actually talking about.
Yeah. And this is such a good way. It's a CYA type action. It makes sure that the things that need to get done. It gives you the ability to offload it for a few, a day if you need to, 2 days or whatever. But it's just making sure that all the parties that are involved know that we've got something missing. If we had to do this by hand, each time we're missing a document and trying to keep track of that, it would be a huge pain. So using that checklist as the document requirement piece, it makes it so much easier. You check off the ones you have, you mark off the ones that you don't need, and then that remains the ones that are still remaining to get done.
Yeah, sorry about the delay on this. I started a workflow and another workflow was already running. So give me just a second to relaunch this. You can do that. It's just a little messy. So I wouldn't run two contract to close workflows on top of each other. So just want to clean that up a little bit.
That is a good advantage, though, of Realvolve's workflow pieces, as you can run as many different workflows simultaneously. But trying to run two at the same time, you wouldn't want to do, or two of the same things at the same time. One thing that you can do is if you go in and you make a change to one of your workflows and you want to add those changes into something that's already running, certainly you could run it again, uncheck all the activities except for the new ones that you want to add in, and then continue on, and that way it'll go ahead and add them back in for that workflow.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm looking for my task to upload the document. Wait. Wasn't it called upload documents to Realvolve?
Do a control F. There it is.
Okay. So this task here is essentially what this task on the back end is going to look like when you run it, right? So we've got our task here. We've got our checklist. Now, when you've run this is what it's going to be. This transaction coordinator is going to say, okay, it's time to upload these documents to Realvolve or wherever it is that your finalized documents are going to live. And so here I've got my checklist. All right, great. I got my contract. I got the signed counter offer, finance exhibit. Great. I don't need a pre-approval. It is an all cash deal. And so what I did was double click on it to say it's not applicable. So one time to check it off as complete, 2 times to mark it as non-applicable. So I, as the buyer transaction coordinator, I still need this lead-based paint. And so what I've done is I've given this transaction coordinator a tool. And it's like, hey, send an email to the buyer's agent to request these mixing documents. So now I, as the buyer's transaction coordinator, I don't have to do a lot. I just have to select that I want to send this email and I'm going to hit run. I've told the system I want it manual with preview so I can take a look at it before I send it. So here's my options: skip or essentially cancel, send the message blindly anyway, or edit message. Let me take a look at it before I send it off. So now I go edit message. I see this template that I built. Okay. So if I or the transaction coordinator want to take a look at it before they send it off, they can go see preview. Now here it is. Okay. See below for a list of the documents I still need. Lead-based paint. So the system said, go in there and which one of those checklist items have you not marked as complete? And that's the lead-based paint. Which one of them is non-applicable? The non-approval or the pre-approval is because I marked it that way. And hey, here's a list. So within 2 clicks, the buyer's agent has comprised this email and go ahead and send this over. When you hit send, now that buyer's agent has an email to them that says, hey, the transaction coordinator has done this. They've marked this as non-applicable and they still need these things. And in comes the power of the way you set this up under your action item, because if I hit send on that email with 0 days, that means let that task sit there until that person gets back to me. But if I hit 1, that activity would go away and become due in another day. It would come back as a reminder to me. So there's a lot of power here with using those checklist merge fields. Anything else on checklist merge fields, Mark?
Just the main concept of or understanding that the action part, that the part that's at the bottom, the actual checklist itself drives that. So because there's no completed, all the checklist items are not dealt with in some form or fashion. So it gives you the available actions. And we had checked that checkbox saying, this is only for non-completed checklists. So it knows, since it's not completed, this is the available action. You may have another action in there that says, okay, once everything is complete, send a confirmation that I have all the documents. These are all the ones I have. These are the ones I don't need, whatever. So you can have multiple actions, but the main thing to understand there is those actions are available based off of the completeness of your checklist. Is it complete or not?
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense conceptually, because if I have an email that says, send this to the buyer's agent to request missing documents, it would make no sense for me to see that as an option to do it if I've already completed this, right? At this point, I've said all of my documents are good. So why would I need the option to send an email over to the buyer's agent to request more information? So as you can see here, the system defines tasks available for things that still need to be done. And then, as Mark was saying, you could have an extra item. So maybe when you check this off, now the action item changes to send verification of completed documentation to the buyer's agent or whatever. And you could even reuse that same template if you wanted.
Can you go back?
The other thing that you can do, and just for clarification there, as a transaction coordinator, not everybody always listens to you. So you could have levels or degrees of importance where you have one that says, okay, these are the documents I need. And then it waits a day, it waits 2 days or whatever, it comes back and it's still unchecked. Uncheck that for a second, if you would. And instead of being one item in this list, you might have 2 different items. One for the, hey, I need this. And one is, hey, we're getting down to the last days. I need this now. And you can see to the right where it says one run. One run means I've sent it one time. Okay. If you've not sent it at all, it'll be zero runs. But maybe maybe you had 2 or 3 documents on there and they only sent you one. Well, it means you've got 2 more left. So you could resend it again. But it gets to that point where it's like, hey guys, this isn't going to close if you don't do this. And then whenever that pops up, you could have a one that's more important. Hey, this isn't going to close if you don't get me this. And that varying level of importance can be distinguished based off of having multiple actions, one for low, one for high need.
Yep, absolutely. And now you can see here, I ran it a second time. So here it says 2 requests. Kathleen, what was your question?
You probably said this, but could you repeat how the remind in 0 days or 2 days works? If you say 2 days, does it go immediately and then again in 2 days, or does it hold off for 2 days?
So this activity is going to show as due, right? Like right now, I've set this activity up originally 0 days after acceptance. So 0 days after acceptance, the buyer's transaction coordinator has a task, and it's like, hey, you need to upload these documents. So they go to do it, they can't do it, they send that email off. This is 0 days after acceptance, right? So the question is, what happens to that task? Do I let it sit there as a to-do so it's in front of the buyer agent's face as a reminder, or do I mark it not as due right now and I hide it for a couple of days? Meaning, okay, let me think about this again in 2 days. So now that task, if I did it for 2 days, if I came down here and I did this reschedule for 2 days, it's going to mark this task as good, and it's going to bring it back to the buyer agent or buyer transaction coordinator's attention as a due task 2 days from today, essentially 2 days after acceptance.
Okay, thank you.
And then if I ran it again, it's going to go away for 2 more days and come back again.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
That is such a powerful piece right there. And it's how you can reduce the amount of time it takes you to do things and also cover your behind. So.
Oh, for sure. Because then it becomes, well, why don't we have the lead-based paint? And then you know for a fact it's because the buyer's transaction coordinator didn't follow your process.
Exactly.
Always want to eliminate, any room for confusion, error, stuff like that. And not only that, you took something that you're paying somebody an hourly rate probably, and you took time out, off of their plate. So you're increasing the amount of things that they can do, or, the time that they have to do. So I think there's that right there is definitely something I would implement in several ways. Another thing that I'm a fan of is for using merge fields is reporting. And so I'm going to jump over now to listings. You can use this reporting option in either listings or transactions. But the example I'm going to give is keeping a seller up to date. And so there's a couple times that you would probably keep a seller up to date. We typically advise that you run 2 workflows to manage listings. You have your pre-MLS, which means you're going to do all of these things in an effort to get ready to list this property. Okay. So on the day that property is supposed to go active, you typically launch your active MLS workflow. And that workflow is going to run through the length of the time that property is on the market. Well, there's a couple places that I would add this report. One being, let's give the seller a list of all of the things that we did to get their property ready to the market. Like, hey, seller, I did the photography, I ordered a cleaner, whatever it is, okay? The things that you did to get the property ready, they're going to live in your pre-MLS workflow. So if I go into my pre-MLS workflow, every single activity has, if you open it up, it has this report drop down. The report says yes or no. What you are telling the system, if you mark report yes, is take whatever is in this title and file it away. File it as if I completed it. Mark that I did this task on this day. Keep a report of that. So if you're going to use this reporting function, and what I mean by that in this specific situation is, hey, seller, your property goes live tomorrow. Here's a list of all the things that I did for you. And have the system generate that report. The system's going to generate that report a couple of ways. One of which it can automatically compile things to put in that checklist is based off of this title. So if you're going to use this reporting system, you need to determine which of your activities you would report to the seller, and you need to toggle your report to yes, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is decide which of my activities I'm going to report. And I'm also going to ensure that my title is something that I would send to my seller. Don't have grammatical errors. Don't make it look, and use wording that you would put in an actual email to the seller. And so think about that when you're doing that. And so in this case, this doesn't really make a lot of sense to report because it's an email that you sent. So here, right? So I'm thinking order photos / virtual tour. So I'm making sure that this is okay. And my report is yes. Great. Okay. So now when I mark this activity as complete on the front end, that activity is going to file itself here. So you can see it says completed. Send seller copy of all signed documents. This title right here is one of my activities. I did not have to come in here to the seller report and create an activity that says that I did this. All I had to do was go into my activity, toggle report to yes. Every time I complete that activity, it's going to file a list that I did that on this date. Okay. So
How many
then the
times?
power, go ahead, Mark.
How many times, do you find yourself in the situation that, of course, in today's market, maybe it's not as much, but the seller saying, "What did you do for me?" You're really in using this particular feature, you're actually backing up why it is so important that they need a real estate agent. These are all the things that I'm doing for you and making sure. And if you don't report this, how do they know what you've been doing? And if for whatever reason it's not selling and it comes to that expiration date, they don't know what you've done to try to sell it. And if they don't know, they may want to get a different agent. At least with this, it's backing up what you've done for them, and it gives you some insight, gives them the insight of the powers of what you've been doing.
Yeah. And there's two places that specifically on the listing side that I see this implemented. Obviously, the world is your oyster. Do what you want. But I think there's a lot of power behind pre-listing, meaning, hey, seller, you're going live tomorrow. These are the things I did to get your property ready for market. And I think this is really powerful in that weekly email to the seller while they're on the market. So, no more are the days where the agent lists the market and they don't hear from them, right? This should be part of your weekly update email to your client. And so the great thing, or the power behind this merge field, is that it can actually distinguish between the things that you've already told the seller. And what I mean by that is if you're using it in that context where we're updating the seller every week. So let's add an activity here. Okay. So maybe I did an open house. Okay. 13 people. When I create a one-off activity, and again, things get on this list by two things. They either do it by you marking yes in the report in the activity, or you're going to click this plus. You're going to input whatever date you want. And this message to the seller with this asterisk is going to be what the seller sees. And so if I hit save here, the system can actually determine a couple things. It can send all of these activities or all of these items. But in the context where you're sending the client an email once a week, does it make sense to remind them what you did from them 3 weeks ago? Probably not. You would probably, want to say, these are the things I did for you this week. And so the system can actually, with this merge field, distinguish between, let's see if we have our seller report email already. It can distinguish between the things that you've sent, the things that you have not sent, or all of the items. Okay. So if you're using this to pull in the list of that information inside of your template, again, you're going to go bracket, bracket. All of these are under seller report. I have a few items. I have seller report non-sent only, and seller report sent only. So if I do non-sent only, the system's going to say, when is the last time that I used this merge field? Oh, it was last Friday when I updated the seller. What are the things that have been added to this list since then? What are the things that have been added since the last time I used this merge field and gave them an update? If you do sent only, it's going to only list the things that you have previously sent. And seller report is not going to look at whether you've sent it before or not. It's just going to go in there and pull a full list of anything that you have put into that report. So this report template is right now by default non-sent only. So it's like, hey, let's get a seller update. This one is getting your market ready, or this template is preparing your address to go on the market. So this is this template that you would use right before it goes live. And so let's take a look at what that does. So if I have a template with this merge field, and I'm inside of my activity, when I access this template, and I hit show preview, I can see here that the system went in and it found everything. So it's pulled in the date that activity was entered. And again, these activities are entered either through completion of a task or by you clicking on that plus sign and doing it. It's going to give you the activity type and it's going to give you the note behind it. So I can send this off to the seller. Now, in this case, it doesn't really make sense to send a specific email again, but the power behind non-sent only is that the system now knows that I have sent those things to the seller. So going forward, as I add things, a showing, and as you can see here, the type, there's a lot of different types that you can kind of keep the seller updated on. Once I've done that, anytime I access this seller report, and again, I think this would be useful on that weekly update, the system now knows that I have sent those things previously, and it's going to exclude them.
Did you actually send it?
I thought I did.
Actually, close the preview for a second. Or
Yep.
the whole email. Just close the whole email. And go into one of those items that were previously sent. I want to check something real quick. Okay, so what it's actually doing, whenever you go through that process and you send that process, it will put a date in there automatically, and that date sent allows you to identify this was sent on this date. And I'm thinking that you didn't complete the activity quite right or something. Maybe worth checking out. But what this is doing is it's checking that date field. So if there is something that you need to resend, it didn't get sent the way you wanted, or you've updated it or whatever, you can just clear out that date sent item, and then whenever it goes to send it the next time, it will then use it. And I'm actually not sure that the preview determines whether they were sent or not.
It should. It has in the past. But again,
Okay.
I sent that and then I immediately did it. So it probably just didn't have time to update it. But as you can see here, I manually went in there and did it just so you guys could see. But now the system's saying, did you actually send this to them before or not? And if you haven't, then it's going to pull a list of those. So again, I definitely see some people will implement this in their buyer contract to close process or any of their contract to close processes. But I do see a lot of power in the reporting behind listings, preparing to list, and then keeping that seller updated. Any questions on that?
The other thing that you can do, and I'm not seeing additional questions there, but so the options of getting it into here is the plus or the report, but you can also add in the checklist area, you can add a merge field. And it's the seller report merge field. So what would happen in that case? So if you go down your checklist, bracket, seller report, what that does then is whenever the activity comes due, and maybe you have it as a repeating activity on Monday. What did I do for this client this week? And it just repeats until you close. It is a merge field in the checklist, which means I can type into the checklist what I've done. I can check it off that I've done that task and updated the report, and then it'll show up in that report next time I go to send it. The advantage there is if you've got somebody, an assistant or whatever, and you put them on a task of, update all my clients each week, if they don't know which ones are actively going, they could miss them. And by putting it in as a workflow item that has to get done, then you don't have to worry about it not getting done. It's always going to be there.
Yeah, and it kind of gives you, so if you go in and mark the activity report to yes, it's going to report that title. But by using that merge field, even though you're still kind of giving them an update about that specific activity, it's actually giving you the ability to kind of give more information in that point, or choose what information that you are saying to that seller in that moment. And so what that looks like on the front end, I just added that to a random task to tag. I don't know that you would even use this in this context, but now that seller report merge field looks like this. Okay. And so, whatever you said, so dropped off 20 brochures, whatever, right? Again, not necessarily great in this context. I'm going to hit save and close. When I did that, where did that information go live? It went and lived in here. So again, yeah, another way to kind of get information here. It knows when I did it, it defaulted as an activity, and it took whatever I typed into that merge field and it stored it. Anything else on that, Mark?
I think that's mainly it. It's covering your butt, making sure that you get the things done and not letting things fall through the cracks.
A couple other things I want to show you. I know we're running down on or low on time. I am a big fan of years or things like this. So instead of saying Happy New Year, what if you send out an email on January 1st, but the system knows to fill it in? So instead of you having to come in here every year and update this, instead of saying, Happy 2024, now at the end of the year, I've got to come and find this template and update it, right? So if we use merge fields for the year, we've got last year, next year, this year, years in business, which is going to go look inside of your settings, which we're going to talk about next. But a lot of power here, right? So if you know that you send your New Year's on December 31st, then you should probably set up your template to use next year's merge field. But if you're going to send it out on January 1st, then this year would be just fine. So I would definitely encourage you to take the year into account when you're doing your templates. Anything else on that, Mark?
Don't believe so. There's just so many merge fields, and they're there for you to automate what you do. Just everything that you send out on any given day is something you've probably sent out before. And if you know what that was before, take that content where it's at in the database, whatever merge field or whatever field holds it, use the merge field, and then you're not having to retype that content anymore.
Yeah. Two more things I want to go over. I know we're running low on time. One is if inside of your settings under my account, this is where you store your information. Okay. Realvolve's merge field calls this current user. Okay. So if you want to access this information, your information, any of these can be pulled into to an email template or used inside of this. Okay. So maybe instead of this signature at the bottom, I wanted to put in, if I type in current user, I can see all the information that, and see you got here, current date, day of week. You have a lot of additional date fields. But if I type in current user, you can see all the things that you have access to. This information is this information. And so if you filled this out, you have access to your profile picture, your logo, any of this information. And so if you type in current user, there you can see your logo, your photo URL, your pronouns, so your title, any of that information that's filled in there, you now have access to use. The last thing that I wanted to show you is actually pronouns. So I'll give you an example of our opening email. Again, this opening email, when you go under contract, you're typically sending out an email to the buyer, to the people that you work professionally saying, hey, we have a new contract. Here's all the stuff you need to know. Here's a copy of the contract. So in this, if you want to make it a little bit more dynamic, one of the things that you can do is reference pronouns. And so if you wanted to say, hey, I'm going to have this one's written as the transaction coordinator, but let's say that you are writing the email introducing your transaction coordinator. You're saying, I have a transaction coordinator. His name is Bob Smith, and he will be reaching out to you. And so what I could do is say, instead of saying he will be reaching out to you, I can use my pronouns. Again, I'm going to access my merge field by double brackets, and I can type in pronouns. And when I do this, the system needs to know whose pronouns are we accessing. And in this case, it's my transaction coordinator, and I am on the buy side. So it would be the buyer transaction coordinator. Now, when you see I get to this point, I have a lot of pronouns, okay? So I have to decide which one of these makes most sense. And I can reference this, this thing right here, right? So I will say he will be reaching out to you. So him will be reaching out to you. That doesn't make a lot of sense. His. So I want to make sure that I'm using it in the right context. But now if I do that, ensure that my space is here. I can replace he with the pronoun of the person. The benefit here, you're saying, well, I'm just going to type that once. It might make sense. Well, what if you change transaction coordinators? You have to remember every spot in the system that you referred to your transaction coordinator, Bob, who is now Sally. Okay. So inside the contact record for Bob, your transaction coordinator, it's going to go look inside of that person's contact record, look under their pronouns, and see if they've selected, what their pronouns are. If nothing has been selected, it will default to they. Correct, Mark?
Correct. Yeah, I was going to make a disclaimer here. I mean, with all the political things going on right now, we are just using, as far as this is the he, she, they. There's a ton of other ones that are out there, and those are something that we probably need to address at some point. But if you don't put in what their sex is, it does automatically go to they.
Yep. Any questions on that? Okay.
Very good.
Yeah, so definitely take a copy of that list that Mark said. Start thinking about how you can take some of these merge fields and use it inside of your business. They're already in the system, so why not use that information in a more dynamic way? Our Navigator program helps you set up your processes, installs your workflows, customizes them with you, and can really help you further with some of this merge field setup if you need additional assistance. Just email sales@Realvolve if you have any questions on that. Upcoming office hours, we've got my systems need systems. And so I think a lot of agents struggle with seeing the bigger picture, right? You know what you do, but do you really understand that your systems really do live in a hierarchy of other systems, even if you don't understand it, right? So for instance, you may, yes, when you go under contract, you do things, but you may have a workflow specific for buyers, for sellers, for that. So have you stopped and looked at the bigger picture of your entire set of systems? And stop focusing on the noise. I think that super important to get, hyper focused on what the agent should be doing, what best practices are, and what is noise in today's day and age, and which is critical for especially the market that we're in. If you need help and support outside of these calls, take a look when you're logged into Realvolve at that black bottom bar. You'll see the help, which you'll access a search of articles. If you want to submit a support ticket, if something in your system's not quite acting as you would expect, the how do I, you can type that in there, set up a signature, and it will actually walk you through how to do these things. So a lot of resources there. And we'll leave the last few minutes for questions. If they don't have to be pertaining to this webinar, but any questions? Open the floor to everybody. No questions.
Going twice. Yeah, don't see any in the list existing. So, So yeah, for those that are watching this on replay, check out the comment section for the list of fields link, and the section in the 2-day training document that I included as well. It just contains a lot of information that we've gone over here, and just how you use merge fields in a really efficient, effective way to make sure that you are spending less time typing and more time doing the things that are dollar productive, as Kendra says. And it's one of those things that we waste a lot of time doing non-productive, money productive things, and we just can eliminate a lot of that through merge fields. So
For sure. Thanks everybody for coming today.
bye everyone, see you next week.
Bye.